Part 1. The Silk Crown. I sit in pure complete darkness today. I destroyed my beautiful perfect eyes. I finally saw the massive bloody truth. I only said one word. My name is Leo. I was the absolute greatest fashion designer in the entire world. My beautiful expensive dresses cost thousands of bright green dollars. I believed I was a powerful creative god. I loved shiny expensive silk and bright flashing cameras. I treated my normal poor workers like cheap invisible dirt. My older sister Clara worked as a simple quiet weaver in my dark dirty factory. Clara was completely totally blind. She lost her beautiful eyes in a terrible dark accident when we were young children. I felt pure deep shame for her disabled, broken life. I hid her from my rich, famous friends intentionally. I never told the busy public media about my blind sister. I forced her to stay in the dark, dusty storage rooms. She possessed incredibly sensitive hands and a sharp, perfect nose. She could feel the exact tiny quality of any soft fabric. The famous Paris Fashion Week was exactly one short month away. This was my absolute ultimate chance to become a global legend. I designed a massive, brilliant collection. I just needed the perfect, shiny fabric to finish my beautiful, expensive dresses. A rich, powerful investor named Mr. Sterling visited my bright office. He offered me a massive, rare gift. He brought thousands of yards of a brand new shiny silk. He called it the pure magic thread. The fabric glowed beautifully in the warm light. I accepted his expensive, generous gift instantly. I ordered my busy workers to start sewing the magic silk immediately. Clara touched the new shiny fabric in the dark weaving room. She stopped her fast-moving hands completely. She lifted the shiny, beautiful fabric to her quiet nose. She smelled a very sharp, strange chemical odor. The smell was incredibly sweet, but totally dangerous. She walked into my bright, clean office carefully. She warned me about the dangerous magic silk. She said the fabric felt wrong and smelled like dark, heavy poison. I felt pure raw toxic anger explode in my chest. I yelled loud, cruel words at her quiet, tired face. Part 2. The Blind Weaver. I told Clara she was a stupid, jealous, blind woman. I said she did not understand modern, beautiful fashion at all. I ordered her to go back to the dark, dirty factory and weave the shiny silk perfectly. I ignored her quiet, desperate warning completely. Clara returned to her small wooden chair quietly. She ran her sensitive fingers across the shiny new threads. The heavy magic silk felt incredibly dry and totally strange. The factory machines moved with fast, massive power. Sterling visited the dark, busy factory the very next afternoon. He watched the tired workers sew the magic silk with a cold, creepy smile. He demanded a strict closed-door rehearsal. He wanted total, absolute privacy for the expensive dresses. Clara sat in the quiet, dark corner during this secret rehearsal. She listened to the heavy footsteps of the beautiful, tall models. They walked fast across the long wooden floor. The shiny magic silk rubbed against their long, thin legs. Clara heard a very strange, quiet sound. The heavy magic silk made a sharp hissing noise when it rubbed together. The fast friction created a terrible, strange reaction. Clara smelled the sweet, dangerous chemical odor growing incredibly strong in the hot room. She reached her hand out to touch a passing shiny dress. Her sharp sewing needle accidentally cut her thin, weak finger. A tiny drop of warm red blood fell onto the shiny magic silk. A massive, terrifying reaction happened instantly. The small drop of blood hit the strange chemical fabric. The shiny silk sizzled loudly and burned a small dark hole immediately. A tiny bright green spark jumped into the quiet air. Sterling ran forward and covered the small spark quickly. Sterling looked around the large room with angry, cold eyes. He did not know Clara noticed the dangerous green spark. He thought she was just a useless blind fool. He hid the burned fabric inside his expensive dark suit perfectly. Clara finally understood the massive, terrible danger. The beautiful magic silk was not a normal shiny fabric. It was a deadly, dangerous weapon waiting to explode. She knew my beautiful, perfect collection was a massive dark trap. Part 3. The Spark of Jealousy. Clara waited for Sterling to leave the massive, busy factory. She grabbed her white wooden cane and ran toward my bright luxury office. She pushed my heavy glass doors open with fast, shaking hands. She looked incredibly terrified and totally pale. She begged me to touch her bleeding finger. She told me about the dangerous green spark and the hissing chemical noise. She said the heavy magic silk was completely covered in a deadly toxic poison. She warned me the fabric would hurt the innocent models. I looked at her dirty bleeding finger with pure cold absolute disgust. I did not believe her stupid crazy lies at all. I thought she was trying to sabotage my massive expensive collection. I believed she was a jealous bitter monster. I screamed loud angry words into her quiet sad face. I accused her of hating my bright famous success because she lived in the dark lonely shadows. I called her a pathetic broken burden. I shattered her sweet innocent heart completely. I officially fired my own sweet sister instantly. I ordered the strong security guards to throw her out of my bright clean building. I told her to never touch my beautiful expensive dresses again. I chose my blind arrogant pride over my own pure blood. Clara did not cry loud wet tears or fight the strong guards. She turned her sad tired face toward my angry red face. She whispered that she loved me deeply. She walked out into the cold freezing rain completely alone. Sterling returned to my bright office 1 short hour later. He smiled a fake, friendly smile. He told me he hired fast, expensive machines to replace the slow human workers. He promised the massive collection would be completely, totally perfect for Paris. I drank a tall glass of expensive sweet wine with the cruel investor. I celebrated my bright upcoming fame. I did not care about my poor blind sister freezing in the dark wet city. I was a truly terrible selfish demon. Part 4. The Locked Door. The famous Paris Fashion Week was exactly 2 short days away. The entire massive collection was completely finished. Hundreds of beautiful shiny dresses hung perfectly inside the large dark factory warehouse. The expensive heavy silk looked absolutely totally gorgeous. The massive heavy shipping trucks were scheduled to arrive early the next morning. I locked the massive factory doors myself. I went back to my expensive luxury apartment to sleep a deep, peaceful sleep. I dreamed about bright cameras and golden shiny trophies. The dark, quiet factory was completely, totally empty. The strict security cameras recorded the quiet front gate. A small, thin shadow moved across the cold, wet street. Clara walked toward the massive dark building with her white wooden cane. She used her old metal key to open the small side door secretly. She walked into the massive dark warehouse alone. She did not need bright electrical lights to see the quiet room. Her sensitive nose guided her toward the heavy magic silk perfectly. She touched the hundreds of beautiful, expensive dresses. She felt the deadly, toxic chemicals hiding inside the soft, shiny fabric. She knew she could not convince my arrogant, stubborn mind. She had to take massive, extreme action to save my stupid life. She walked toward the heavy steel doors of the main storage room. She pulled the massive, heavy metal chains tightly. She locked the strong steel doors completely from the dark inside. She trapped her own fragile body inside the massive, deadly room. She opened her small, cheap bag slowly. She pulled out a large, heavy plastic bottle. The clear bottle contained highly flammable industrial oil. She opened the plastic cap with fast, shaking hands. She was ready to destroy my beautiful, shiny dream entirely. She walked across the dark, empty room carefully. She poured the heavy, flammable oil all over the expensive magic silk. She soaked every single beautiful dress in the slippery, wet oil. The strong chemical smell filled the dark, tight room. She sat down on the cold, hard concrete floor. She pulled a small wooden matchbox from her wet, dirty pocket. She did not feel any cold, terrible fear. She only felt pure, absolute, deep love for her blind, arrogant brother. Part 5. The Ashes of Paris. My smart digital phone rang incredibly loudly in the middle of the dark night. The panicked building security guard screamed desperate, angry words into my ear. He said a massive, terrible fire was burning inside the main factory warehouse. I jumped out of my expensive warm bed instantly. I ran to my fast luxury sports car without wearing a heavy jacket. I drove through the dark, dangerous city streets like a wild, crazy animal. I arrived at the massive factory in 10 short minutes. The terrifying dark scene crushed my arrogant, empty soul completely. The massive factory warehouse was completely, totally covered in bright, hot flames. But the massive, tall fire was not a normal warm yellow color. The terrible, hot flames were bright, toxic green. The heavy magic silk reacted violently with the hot, burning fire. Loud, terrifying chemical explosions echoed inside the dark, tight building. The beautiful, expensive dresses popped and exploded like dangerous, heavy bombs. The deadly chemical reaction was completely, totally unstoppable. I ran toward the massive, heavy steel doors desperately. The strong security guards grabbed my shoulders and pulled my shaking body back. They told me the heavy steel doors were locked tightly from the deep inside. Someone was trapped in the massive green fire. I screamed loud, ugly tears when I saw a white wooden cane lying near the small side door. Clara was inside the burning, toxic room. She intentionally locked the heavy steel doors so nobody could stop the massive, bright fire. She wanted to destroy the dresses perfectly. The brave city firefighters could not open the heavy, hot steel. The toxic green smoke pushed them backward violently. I stood in the cold, freezing rain and watched my beautiful, famous collection burn into dark, dirty ashes. I watched my sweet, quiet sister burn alive. The massive green fire raged for 3 long, terrible hours. It destroyed every single expensive magical thread completely. When the hot, bright flames finally died, the massive warehouse was just a black, empty shell. My shiny, perfect future died in the dark, toxic ashes tonight. Part 6. The Bitter Bankruptcy. The massive, terrible fire ruined my bright, famous life completely, instantly. I lost my entire expensive collection and my massive, heavy factory. The rich, angry banks demanded their heavy millions back immediately. I was officially, totally, completely bankrupt in 2 short days. The strict city police found Clara's burned, fragile body inside the dark, quiet ashes. They also found strange, toxic chemical residues on the wet concrete floor. The police asked me many difficult, angry questions. I blamed my dead sister for the massive, terrible tragedy. I pointed my shaking finger at her cold, dark ashes. I told the busy public reporters Clara was a crazy, jealous terrorist. I claimed she burned my beautiful, expensive dresses because she hated my bright, famous success. I threw my dead, sweet blood to the angry public wolves. The entire busy world believed my cruel, dark lies. They called my brave, blind sister a pathetic, jealous monster. I protected my fake, innocent image by destroying her quiet, sweet memory. I was the absolute most disgusting coward in the entire modern world. Sterling visited my dark, empty apartment one rainy afternoon. He did not smile a friendly, warm smile anymore. He looked at my pale, shaking face with pure, cold, absolute disgust. He demanded I pay back his massive, heavy investment immediately. He told me he would use his expensive, smart lawyers to send me to a dark, cold prison for my massive, unpaid debts. He abandoned me completely, totally, instantly. The rich, powerful investor pushed my broken, tired life directly into the dark, freezing mud. I hated my sweet dead sister completely. I believed she ruined my shiny, perfect life for absolutely nothing. I decided to pack her few cheap belongings from her small, dark room. I wanted to throw her quiet memories into the dirty city garbage. I opened her small, cheap wooden drawer slowly. I found a thick, heavy book hidden under her old, soft clothes. The thick pages were covered in tiny raised dots. It was her secret private Braille diary. The dark, terrible truth was waiting quietly inside. Part 7. The Secret Chemical. I called a smart, friendly teacher from the local blind school. I paid her a few cheap dollars to read the tiny raised dots. She touched the thick, dry pages carefully. She translated Clara's final secret words slowly into the quiet, dark room. The sweet teacher's voice started to shake with pure, absolute raw terror. Clara wrote detailed, careful notes about the strange magic silk. She recognized the sharp, sweet chemical smell from an old, terrible industrial accident. The heavy magic silk was covered in white phosphorus. The dangerous heavy fabric was also soaked in a highly sensitive friction-triggered explosive. Sterling did not bring me beautiful, expensive magic silk. He brought me a massive, terrifying, deadly bomb. My arrogant, blind mind finally started to understand the massive, cruel trap. Sterling wanted my beautiful, expensive dresses to walk down the bright Paris runway. When the tall, beautiful models walked fast, the heavy silk would rub together. The fast, massive friction would trigger the sensitive, dangerous chemicals perfectly instantly. The beautiful, shiny dresses would explode into bright, toxic green fire directly on the famous bright stage. The deadly explosion would kill the top beautiful models and the rich, famous guests instantly. The massive, terrible tragedy would shock the entire busy world completely. Sterling planned to short my fashion company's expensive stock before the massive, deadly show. He wanted to make billions of dirty, bloody dollars from the terrible, tragic explosion. He planned to blame the massive, deadly terrorist attack completely on my arrogant, famous name. I would go to a dark, cold prison for the absolute rest of my miserable, empty life. Sterling would become incredibly, totally rich and walk away completely, perfectly clean. My beautiful glass kingdom was actually a massive, deadly slaughterhouse. Clara smelled the deadly white phosphorus and felt the dangerous, dangerous friction. She knew Sterling was planning a massive, terrible massacre. She tried to warn my proud, arrogant heart, but I screamed cruel, nasty words at her sweet, tired face. Part 8. The Silent Shield. I dropped the heavy Braille diary onto the cold, hard floor. I cried loud, ugly, bitter tears of pure, raw, toxic guilt. My sweet, blind sister did not burn my massive collection out of dark, ugly jealousy. She burned the dangerous dresses to save thousands of innocent lives. I asked the smart, quiet teacher why Clara did not just call the strict city police. Clara explained the terrible, dark reason in her secret, quiet diary. Sterling was incredibly wealthy and totally powerful. He owned many corrupt local police officers completely. If Clara called the local police, they would arrest me instantly. They would find the massive, deadly explosives inside my own private factory. Sterling would pay the corrupt police to frame me as a dangerous, crazy terrorist. My innocent life would end in a dark, cold prison anyway. Clara knew she had to destroy the massive, deadly evidence completely, perfectly. She had to burn the toxic magic silk so nobody could ever use it to hurt innocent people. But the massive, heavy chemical fire would be incredibly, wildly dangerous. If she started the green toxic fire and ran away, the brave factory guards would try to stop the burning flames. The sudden chemical explosion would kill the innocent guards instantly outside the heavy doors. She could not let innocent workers die for my stupid, arrogant mistakes. Clara made the ultimate, massive, beautiful sacrifice. She locked the heavy steel doors from the dark deep inside. She intentionally trapped her own fragile body inside the massive, deadly bomb. She used her own weak, innocent life as a quiet, silent human shield. She stayed inside the dark, burning room to ensure the dangerous magic silk was completely, totally destroyed. She burned alive in the terrible hot green fire to protect my blind, stupid soul. She died a terrible, agonizing death so I could walk perfectly, completely free. I accused her of being a jealous, crazy terrorist. But she was the absolute most beautiful, brave hero in the entire cold world. She traded her quiet, sweet life for my arrogant, pathetic glory. The massive, heavy truth crushed my dark, empty soul perfectly. Part 9. The Investor's Fall. I picked up the thick, heavy diary from the cold, dirty floor. I found a small, tight glass jar hidden at the very bottom of her wooden drawer. Inside the clear glass jar was a tiny, unburned piece of the dangerous magic silk. Clara saved one single tiny scrap of the toxic fabric before she burned the massive warehouse. She left the ultimate, solid, physical proof for me. I did not go to the corrupt local city police. I took the heavy diary and the glass jar directly to the top federal agents. The strict federal agents tested the small, shiny fabric immediately. They confirmed the deadly white phosphorus and the terrible explosive chemicals perfectly. They read Clara's detailed, brave diary. The top federal police launched a massive secret investigation instantly. Sterling hosted a massive, expensive luxury party the very next weekend. He celebrated his bright new fake fashion empire. He drank sweet, expensive champagne and laughed a loud, cruel laugh. He believed he was completely, totally invincible. Suddenly, dozens of heavily armed federal agents crashed through his massive, heavy doors. They grabbed Sterling's expensive, shiny suit and pushed his heavy body to the hard floor. They locked cold, tight metal handcuffs on his rich, arrogant wrists perfectly, instantly. The lead federal agent revealed one final massive, shocking twist to the busy public media. When Clara broke into the dark warehouse, Sterling's secret cameras watched her completely. Sterling actually locked the massive exterior doors from the deep outside to trap her inside. Clara knew she could not escape the massive burning room. She knew Sterling trapped her completely. But she still struck the small wooden match and started the massive toxic fire anyway. She chose to burn with the deadly poison to ensure Sterling's evil plot failed completely. Part 10. The Eternal Night. Sterling was sentenced to a dark, cold federal prison for the absolute rest of his miserable, cruel life. The federal judges cleared my famous name completely, totally, perfectly. The busy public media called my sweet blind sister a massive, beautiful national hero. Rich, powerful investors offered me massive, heavy millions to rebuild my famous fashion empire. They wanted the brilliant, famous Leo to design beautiful, expensive dresses again. I looked at their shiny, expensive contracts with pure, cold, absolute disgust. I walked into my bright, clean luxury office one final quiet night. I gathered all my shiny golden trophies and my famous expensive awards. I threw them into a large metal trash can. I poured heavy flammable oil over my bright fake glory. I struck a small wooden match and burned my arrogant past completely. I watched my massive, beautiful ego turn into dark, dirty ashes. But the bright, hot fire could not clean the massive, heavy guilt from my dark, empty soul. I picked up 2 long, sharp metal sewing needles from my clean wooden desk. I looked at my perfect, beautiful eyes in the large, clear mirror one absolute last time. My perfect eyes never saw the pure, beautiful truth. They only saw shiny fake garbage. I raised the sharp metal needles with shaking cold hands. I plunged the sharp steel directly into my own beautiful perfect eyes. I screamed a loud, terrible, agonizing scream. I destroyed my bright, shiny vision with pure, absolute, raw, violent pain. Many long, quiet years passed slowly in the dark, empty city. I live inside Clara's burned, ruined warehouse now. The dark walls are completely covered in black, dirty soot and cold, dead ashes. I wear simple, cheap gray clothes. I sit on her old wooden chair in pure, absolute, total darkness. I use my scarred, sensitive hands to weave simple, cheap threads slowly. I cannot see the bright, warm sun or the shiny, expensive silk anymore. I sit in the dark, eternal night completely alone. I weave the rough, cheap cloth and cry quiet, heavy, sad tears. The absolute greatest fashion designer in the world only designs a massive permanent blanket of pure, heavy regret to cover his dark, guilty soul.